last devotion I talked about, kind of finished out with the thought that what it means to kind of win in life. Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, he said, I've run my race, I've finished my course. He had done what he was asked by God to do. Now we know that Paul had his ups and downs. Romans chapter 7 is pretty clear that it wasn't just a, cakewalk for him, not just the suffering, but his own internal battles that he fought. But I just want you to consider now, how about your life? We've talked in previous devotions about, having spiritual children, meaning that our goal is to reproduce ourselves. We want to invest in people. You want not just family members, although what a great privilege we have to invest our lives in those that we know and love, but others in our church, in our community, to share the life that we have with others, to watch a person be born into eternal life and then track them through or help them as they go along, watch over them when they go through problems, to be there for them. That, this is an incredible kind of parenting privilege that we have as believers, without having to have all the authority and pay for all the mistakes. But either way, but I just was reflecting when I was back east on Dr. Ron Long, the Southern gentleman that used to come and visit us for well over a decade. I've had a number of people that have stood out in my life. He certainly is one of them. And one of the things that really impressed me about him was his ability to just kind of rule over bad situations. I really appreciated the fact that he shared many of his stories. No one could laugh more than he did at himself. And he was just, open to sharing his stories, times that he went through that were tough times, battles that he had to fight. It meant a lot to me as a young man, or a younger man, to hear those things. The fact that he was willing to teach others to do as he did, to give them examples, someone to look at and watch, and didn't put himself on a pedestal, I might add. He wasn't asking everyone to be as he is, but just simply to take his experiences and use those if they can be edifying or helpful. He was quite a testimony. We've talked in Proverbs chapter 10 and verse 7 about the memory of the just is blessed, or the righteous. I see him as that type of person. When I think of him, it's a blessing. It always has been. I think many times we can see that God can use, if we're willing to share our experiences with people in a edifying way, not in a demeaning way. But if we're willing, I think it's interesting that God can take those experiences and he can use them in the lives of others. And they can be a blessing to them. They can give them strength in their time of weakness. I remember my first pastor, Dr. Stevens, who actually, I watched as he went through things, and it blessed me to be able to watch as he experienced these things, and had the strength and fortitude to live a life that was open for others to view. That was a blessing to me in those early days, and I can't speak for the entirety of his life, but I could certainly speak to those things. And it does. It speaks to us. Well, let me just say, as I kind of close this out, as we're getting older, I hope that our goal is to pass on, not just complain about, but pass on many of the things that have been a blessing. faithfulness of God in our life. I remember that last visit to Dr. Long's bedside, 2 weeks before he passed, and for a whole half an hour he laid in that bed and did nothing but encourage me. He spoke. You would think that we had 10,000 people in our church out here, the way that he spoke of our church. All the people in the room, I've never, it was embarrassing. It was so edifying. I was humbled, but I was also incredibly encouraged. And I thought to myself, that's how I want to live. I want to end my life in such a way that I am actually ministering to people. To the last breath, I want to minister to people. I wrote this down: through his testimony of faithfulness to God, in spite of his weaknesses, and even sometimes his foolishness. He shares so many stories, but like the time he washed his phone in the sink and destroyed it. There were so many things. There were just so many things that he would share that you just couldn't help but laugh. He inspired hope in the hearts of those going through challenging times. Now, I don't know whether you have or whether you will, but I know this: I think we all will go through challenging times. And I have this little quote here regarding aging that I think really is helpful, especially if you've been through some of the times. You know, we've all had those times where people have been kind of mean-spirited. Perhaps we've done the same. I'm sure we have to some degree. But this is called the senility prayer. I hope it blesses you. It was a blessing to me. Grant me the senility to forget the people I never liked anyway, the good fortune to run into the ones that I do like, and the eyesight to be able to tell the difference. Well, folks, with that, I'm going to leave you. Till next time.